When it comes to next generation consoles, they're coming sooner rather than later. Of course, you have lots of rumors about Xbox and the Xbox One 2 called Project Scarlet as supposedly potentially launching in 2019. But I think all eyes are really on Sony and the PlayStation brand. After the dominance of the PS4 in this generation with over 80 million systems sold, plus a mid-generation refresh, the Sony PlayStation brand has been doing very well this generation, and a lot of people are wondering what the PlayStation 5 is going to entail. Now, Sony themselves have been pretty quiet on the situation, so you would think there wouldn't be much information out there. But I've spent the better half of this morning actually researching what information was out there on the PlayStation 5, and I was actually pretty surprised. There's a lot of information regarding things like specs, games, and a lot more. So in this video, that's basically what we're going to go over. We're going to go over everything we know about the PlayStation 5 as of right now. So sit back, relax, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and let's talk about the PlayStation 5 and what we know about it.
Hey, RGT 85. Hey, Sean.
Oh my God, it's Stevie Richards!
So first and foremost, when it comes to the PlayStation 5, you have to look at when the potential launch date of this system will be. Now, according to Sony CEO John Cordera, in May 2018, he went on the record as stating, "We will use the next 3 years to prepare the next step, to crouch down so that we can jump higher in the future." So that leads many to believe that the PlayStation 5 will actually launch in 2021. A lot of industry analysts have it being pegged as a 2020 release, but according to this statement, it's going to be at least 3 years before we see the PlayStation 5. And since this announcement was made in 2018, basic math will tell you that that is a 2021 release date. A lot of people look towards the Xbox brand when it comes to this though, as the Xbox brand and the Sony brand are obviously in some sort of competition when it comes to generations of video game systems. Now, of course, the Xbox brand really seems to be gearing up for a future release for the Xbox One 2. They've acquired some new studios, and it looks like they're starting to shift their efforts and focus onto the next generation of consoles. A lot of people expect the Xbox One 2 to actually be unveiled at E3 2020 or 2019. So would it be smart for Sony to do the same thing with the PlayStation 5? I don't necessarily think it's a bad idea. You would get people interested in the system, you would get people knowing about what the system actually is without really showing too much. If it still has a 2021 release date, that'll still drive PS4 sales because it's still at least 2 years away from the launch. So I definitely think that a 2021 release date makes sense for the PS5. And since it's coming from Sony's mouth themselves, it's a pretty safe bet. One of the things that a lot of people are curious with the PS5 is, of course, the hardware of the system. I would say that the last generation was the first time we did not see a huge generational gap between the PS3 and the PS4. It definitely was there, but it's definitely nothing like we've seen with like the Super Nintendo to the N64 or things like that. As technology advances, you're not going to see these huge generational gaps anymore, but that sort of makes sense. It's more about things like performance and what's inside of the actual system. So, according to a report from Digital Foundry that was done earlier this year, Sony is reportedly working with AMD again, this time on a Ryzen CPU. Of course, the PS4 had a Jaguar CPU in it, and that evidently caused some problems because a lot of developers were sourcing the Jaguar CPU as one of the weakest areas of both the PS4 and the Xbox One. So obviously using a Ryzen CPU would be a big boost in terms of graphical fidelity and what they could potentially do with the system. Will the system have 4K resolution native out of the box and 60 frames per second? That seems to be the way that the video game industry is shifting towards. Of course, 4K TVs themselves are becoming cheaper as well, so it would make sense from a business standpoint to go that route, but you have to look at the technological things and of course the price of things. The Xbox One X is currently the strongest console on the market and is a 6 teraflop system that retails for $500 with razor thin profit margins, if not even being sold at a loss. So a lot of people are wondering how many teraflops the PS5 will actually have. Will it have 8 to 10, which is what seems to be the way that the industry is going? And if so, how much would that actually make the system cost? Well, in 2018 money, it would probably be a very expensive system, but like we said earlier, Sony seems to be preparing for a 2021 launch of the PlayStation 5, which means that these prices would be drastically less than what they would be. You just have to look at things like SD cards for the Nintendo Switch, where the price just keeps going lower and lower and lower. As time goes on, technological things become cheaper. It becomes cheaper to make these things as more companies get involved, so the price of it goes down. So I could definitely see the system having 8 to 10 teraflops, but all we know so far is that essentially it'll be using a Ryzen CPU, which should be really interesting to see what sort of power they're able to get out of that. Speaking about the price point of the system, that seems to be a big question that a lot of people have as well. You can't really dictate what the price of the system is going to be, as no one from Sony has said anything, but you can pretty much look at history to sort of guess where the system will land. Of course, the PS3 launched at $500, and that was a huge detriment to the system, and was why the PS3 got off to such a sluggish start. It definitely picked up when the price of the system dropped as well. You can also look at this last generation, or current generation, and look at the Xbox One that launched with the Kinect system. That was a $500 system, and you could not buy it initially without Kinect. And a lot of people didn't care about motion controls. And how much did that cost? $500 as well. So it was obviously a detriment to gamers to have to spend $500 on a new console. So I think definitely Sony will go the $400 route. The PlayStation 4 launched at $400, and of course we have seen the success of the system. If you're launching anything above $400, it's definitely a very murky area. And like I said earlier, with chip prices going down for a lot of these things, it should definitely be achievable for the $400 mark for the PlayStation 5 as well. One area of interest, of course, is backwards compatibility with the PlayStation 5. The PlayStation 4 did not have backwards compatibility with your PlayStation 3 disc, and a lot of people didn't like that about the system, but it does look like the PlayStation 5 actually will have backwards compatibility. According to a patent that was updated on February 13th, 2018, Sony is experimenting with backwards compatibility testing of software in a mode that disrupts timing. Now, obviously, that's going to be something into effect with the PlayStation 5, so it looks like you'll be able to use your PlayStation 4 discs on your PlayStation 5, and Sony also stated in their Sony IR Day report in 2018 that they want to mitigate the impact of platform life cycle compared to the past cycle. So if you pretty much put that in layman's terms, they didn't like how you could not play your PlayStation 3 discs on the PlayStation 4 because that really segmented the audience. Now with the PlayStation 5, if they can have PS4 backwards compatibility with the system, it really opens up the library of games. Now as far as things like the PS3, the PS2, and the PS1 are concerned, I don't think you'll see any sort of backwards compatibility with that. Obviously Sony is pushing the PlayStation Now brand, and they're trying to get people to download these games digitally and play them via streaming. So I don't foresee them entering the market of backwards compatibility with those systems, but I think it's pretty safe to say that your PS4 discs will work on your PS5. Now, of course, none of this all matters unless the system has games, and we have to talk about games because there's actually been some confirmed games, and then there are games that I definitely want to speculate on that I feel will be coming to the PlayStation 5. First and foremost, we do have a confirmed game, and that is, of course, Starfield. During Bethesda's E3 2018 presentation, Todd Howard was on stage and said that Starfield is an action RPG set in space that will be launching on next-generation platforms. Well, what's a next-generation platform? The PlayStation 5, of course. I'm definitely sort of feeling that this will be a sort of successor to Mass Effect. It's actually the first IP that Bethesda has built from the ground up, as far as I know. So it'll be really interesting to see. Could it be like Fallout in space or something like that, or a spiritual successor to Mass Effect? I think time will tell with that, but I'm definitely curious to see what they do. Now, during that same presentation, they also showed off Elder Scrolls 6, and honestly, with the lack of information that they showed, they basically just showed sort of the overworld for it. I definitely think that this will be a PlayStation 5 launch title, because it just makes sense. Obviously, we had Skyrim on the PS4, and there's been Elder Scrolls games throughout the years, but they always seem to struggle a bit on the hardware. Skyrim on the PS4 was great because it wasn't built for the PS4. It was originally built for the PS3, and then they were able to harness the power of the PS4. Of course, Skyrim has been available on everything, so there may be last generation versions of this. I could see it coming to the PS4, but I definitely think there will be a beefed up version for the PlayStation 5 as well. Now, while Starfield is the only confirmed game that we have so far, there are a couple other games that I do want to speculate on. The first being Death Stranding. I really feel that Death Stranding will be a PS5 launch title. It's been several E3s, we've seen this game several different times for years now, and we still don't know a whole hell of a lot about it. They really haven't shown any sort of gameplay. Everything we've seen so far in terms of gameplay has either been walking or cutscenes, so I don't really think the game is as far as in development as Sony would like to lead on. So I definitely foresee Death Stranding being a PlayStation 5 title. Another game I think we'll see a PlayStation 5 release is The Last of Us 2. Now, I definitely think The Last of Us 2 is coming to the PS4, but if you remember with the original Last of Us, they released it on the PS3, and then they did like a definitive version on the PS4, which ran better and had better graphics. And I definitely could foresee Sony doing that with this version of the game as well. Obviously, The Last of Us was a huge success. I think it sold over 18 million copies across all platforms, so The Last of Us 2 has a really good chance of making a huge impact in the gaming world as well. So I definitely don't think Sony would want to regulate that just to the PS4. I think they would want that to be on the PS5 as well. The Final Fantasy VII Remake, that's another game that we've heard won't be coming until at least 2020 potentially. So at this point in time, I'm thinking to myself, why not just release it on the PS5? You have Kingdom Hearts 3 coming out on the PS4 and the Xbox One, which was in development hell. Final Fantasy 15 was in the same sort of thing. And to say that Final Fantasy VII Remake isn't in some sort of development hell, I think is being very disingenuous. I definitely foresee this being a next-gen title. Now, the last game, of course, is just a game that's going to come to the system. Call of Duty. It'll be there at launch. Everyone knows Call of Duty's going to be there at launch because it's freaking Call of Duty, and Activision loves launching on new platforms like that. So in conclusion, I think there's a lot of information about the PS5 out there that maybe a lot of people didn't realize. So I just wanted to make this video to show you guys there's actual concrete information out there. We actually know about things like specs and games and potential things that the PlayStation 5 will do due to different patents and stuff like that. I don't expect you guys to do the research on it. That's sort of why I'm here. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's something a little different than what I normally do on the channel, but I had fun making it and researching it. Let me know in the comments section down below what you expect from the PlayStation 5 and what you want to see the PlayStation 5 do, and thank you for checking out this video. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Check out other videos on the channel, and I will catch you guys on the next video. Later.